next step to really mastering 12 leads is having a standardized approach to reading them. So my 10-step system starts off with big sick versus little sick. And that's again, when you look at a patient, are they pale, cool, diaphoretic, or are they just sitting there looking at you, right? And you can do the same thing with 12 lead EKGs. If you look at a 12 lead and they have VTAC, that's big sick. If you look at the 12 lead and they're a STEMI, that's also big sick. If they just have a few flip T waves, then that's most likely little sick. And it's the big sick that you don't pass go, you don't collect 200, you solve that problem and you never make it through the 10 step, right? Because you're going to get them where they need to go. The worst thing you can do is dissect Q waves and T waves, right? When they're a STEMI, like just get them where they need to go. And if they're not big sick, then you can go through the rest of your steps. So here's how it works. After you do big sick versus little sick, then you do rate as number 2. Looking for a rate anywhere between 50 and 90. You can use 60 and 100. I like to use 50 to 90 because that's more where I like my patients to live. And then look at the rhythm. That's where you're looking at, is there a P wave? Is the P and the QRS together, right? What is the regularity of the R to R interval? Speaking of intervals, that's step number 4. And when you're looking at those numbers at the top of the EKG, you're dissecting them again to make sure they fall within the parameters. If they don't, that's your clue to look for some of the other things we talked about. So short PR interval is a clue to look for delta waves. A long QT is a clue to not give them any more QT prolongers. By the way, there's a great app you can get that's free called crediblemeds.org that will help you find all of those medications that cause problems. Step number 5 is the axis that's included in the intervals, and that's only really helpful if you're dealing with a wide complex tachycardia. The next step is deep diving into your ST segments and looking for any ST elevation or any ST depression. Either one of those should make us take pause and make that straight line across our EKG to really find out if there's a problem, because this is where, if there's subtle STEMI, this is where you'll pick that up. The next thing is looking at the voltage. Is there any hypertrophy? So big R waves or small R waves. And if there's big R waves, we worry about LVH or left ventricular hypertrophy. And if they're small, we worry about things like obesity, potentially pericardial effusion, or potentially even ongoing ACS. Now, step 8 is where you're going to look at your T waves, looking to make sure that they all point up, except for in AVR and V1, where they should be inverted, then scanning the layout for any Q waves. Are they present? And if so, are they more than a third the height of the R wave? If they are, they're most likely pathologic. And finally, we're going to use step 10, which is the chief complaint-based approach. So if a patient says they have chest pain, you're going to go back into the EKG and look for specific things. Like, for example, STEMI, obviously, right? PE. So we would look for an S1Q3T3. And that would be the same if they complained of dyspnea, right? And if they had palpitations, we would go look for Wolff-Parkinson's White, short PR interval, prolonged QT, because all those things we know could potentially cause someone to feel palpitations. And so it's all at the end of the day about the family, right? Because the mom, the dad, and the baby, are they all together? Are they all holding hands? And that's part of how we solve the mystery of what's going on. All right, so let's practice with a real EKG. Now, this is someone who came in with chest pain, so we have to look at him through those lenses. And of course, we're going to scan the EKG for big sick, little sick, looking for, does it say STEMI at the top, looking for any serious arrhythmias that we would need to stop in our tracks for, and seeing that there are none. The next thing we want to do is we want to look at the rate, okay? So the rate is normal. Right here, ventricular rate of 79. The next thing we want to do is go down to rhythm. Down here, you have V1 pulled out for you, and you can see that there is nice, beautiful P waves. So we can safely ascertain that this is sinus rhythm, okay? It's also got a regular R to R interval, so that's also helpful. And we also can look over here and see in the PR interval that there is a P because it is being measured by the machine. So that's just a double confirmation, because remember, if there isn't, you'll see an asterisk here. So the next step after rhythm is intervals, going down and looking at all your intervals to make sure they are all normal. So yes, PR interval is normal. QRS is normal and skinny. QTC is, oh, wait a minute, that's a little long, right? So that's not normal. It should be below 460. So when you get that, you want to go double check, right? And you want to see, is it really that long? Well, you're going to go ahead and you're going to make your line down the middle of the R to R, and you can see it's almost there. So this patient most likely does have prolonged QT. So you would want to actually physically measure it after your eyeball test gets it pretty close and the machine said it's too long. The next thing you're looking at is the axis down here, and you can see that that's 24, which is normal. Now you got to go look at the ST segments. So the ST segments, you're going to make your straight line looking all the way across on all the leads, and you're not going to see a significant amount. You are going to see a little bit in V2, and you potentially have a little in V3, but it's not enough in this age group that came in or for the sex that came in. Now there's different guidelines for that I won't get into, but if you were to draw your line across all of the leads, you would see there's nothing significant. Now let's really quickly jump in because I don't have a lot of time. We'll skip the rest of the steps and jump right into where the problem is because I don't want you to miss this. These T waves are a problem because remember, the T waves that are upside down or inverted are bad unless they are in AVR and V1. But interestingly enough, V1's T wave is upright. So that's not normal. That's supposed to be inverted. And these T waves here, 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 and here, those are all inverted. There's also one here, which is inverted. So those things are not normal as well. So this was a case of somebody who had an LAD occlusion who went to the cath lab because they had an elevated troponin, not because they met STEMI criteria, and they required a stent in their LAD. So it's these small clues. It's the STT wave marked abnormality, right? It's those little clues and using this 10-step system that helps you solve the case.